Hey everyone, I'm Armor Gaming, welcome back to my channel and welcome to a monster analysis on Gakora. Gakora is always exactly where he's needed. Known as the remover of obstacles, he heals, protects, and empowers his allies in battle. However, Gakora isn't only a good friend in the battlefield, there's no one who can tell anecdotes like he does. And so here we have the newest and latest light legendary monster, a current team race monster, which means a lot of players are going to be getting this monster at level 115. And let me just tell you right off the bat, this monster is quite phenomenal. Of all the team race monsters that have been released up until this point, I think Gakora might have the potential to take the #1 spot. And I know that's a pretty bold claim to make considering all the different team race monsters that have been released. Many of them have been phenomenal in their own way, but Gakora is seriously something special. So without further ado, let's jump into this analysis. So once again, Gakora is a light legendary monster, and currently in the game there's a total of 34 of them. And then Gakora is also in the Spirits book, and the Spirit book is quite a powerful book. It's home to 3 of the Nemesis monsters and their variations. We have Lum, we have Sammy, we have Zyron. And that Zyron the Ruby, let me tell you, this is a really hard monster to counter. 3509 base speed with skills that can deny you for days. Ruby has a skill called Ruby Explosion that applies 2 control effects to all of the enemy monsters. Also has a skill called Lane Odds, which applies 1 control effect to all of the enemy monsters. That one has a 95% accuracy. And then Ruby can also do a 50% AoE stamina drain, a single 100% stamina drain, a single cooldown is activated. Ruby can do a lot, it's a tough monster to counter. And because such a powerful monster exists in the Spirits book, that's why I'm making the claim that Gakora might be the best team race monster we have had up until this point. Oh, and by the way, Gakora is also in the Good Legions book, which is currently the home to 74 legendary monsters. And if we scroll down, you see Hydratilla right there, Nemesis monster, and we see Zyron yet again. So once again, Gakora and Zyron share the same book, and so Gakora is going to be a great monster to bring to counter Ruby. Once again, especially because Ruby is a Nemesis monster, whereas Gakora, available in Team Race, a lot of players that actually get Gakora are going to have this monster at level 115. And then we also have Talos, a Nemesis monster. And we have some other great deniers in this category like Cassandra, like Rabish, and especially Kihaku. A great free-to-play denier, probably the best free-to-play denier in the game, was recently available in a 70-tower challenge, so a lot of players are possibly going to have Kihaku at rank 1, 2, or 3. So the fact that players are getting access to Gakora, more specifically a rank 3 Gakora, and then Gakora happens to be in the Good Legions book, that is really great for the players that managed to get this monster. And so with that said, let's take a look at stats. For power we have 3157, this is honestly one of the poorest powers in the light legendary category. This power is tied with Monkey and Hasai, and it's tied from being 8th from the bottom, so not a very good power at all. However, that doesn't matter because this monster is not going to be there to attack. I know he has 4 arms and you might be thinking he's powerful. He looks really buff and muscular, but no, this monster is an amazing support monster. He's a 3 speed rune holder, and just wait till I get to his speed. As for his life, it's 29,858. This puts him tied with Rabish for 15th place, so right in the middle of light legendary monsters. A pretty good life in my opinion, especially when you combine it with the relics he has. He's one of the hardest monsters to kill in the light legendary category. Alright, and here's the good part. Now we get to his speed. This monster is incredibly fast. 3509 base speed. In the light legendary category, this is the 3rd highest stat. The only light legendary monsters that have a higher stat than this are Kasai, who has 3630, and Lao Lao, who has 3553, none of which are really 3 speed holders. Lao Lao is an attacker, Kasai is more of a secondary supporter, you'd give her team speed, but Gakora 3509, this is the kind of monster you put 3 speed runes on. And I should also mention Lum, the magical matriarch, the Nemesis monster, she also has a 3509 base speed. So these 2 monsters are tied for having the 3rd fastest base speed in the light legendary category. Next up would be Alcanine and Rabish with the 3498 base speed. So Gakora just puts him to shame, once again, especially considering this is a team race monster, meaning lots of players are going to get this monster at rank 3, and if not rank 3, in the rank 2 or rank 1. So once again, the players that actually get this monster are going to have a huge competitive advantage. And then as for the trait, we have Hardened, which once again, in my opinion, this is the best trait to have for regular monsters. 20% accuracy against all sorts of status effects, that is great, especially considering all the new status effects being released. You know, like Total Blind, monsters with Time Stop. It's great to have some sort of protection against everything, because in Team Wars you never know what you're going to face. It's 3 against 3, so having an immunity to just one particular control effect, that doesn't really help you out when the enemy can just choose to counter with something else. And then as for relics, this monster can hold the Essence relic, which is one of the more powerful relics in the game. It has a lot of healing potential, and if you happen to be fortunate enough to have the Diamond Essence, this essence, Uriel's Essence, will actually revive your monster when it dies. So Gakora can come back to life if it's ever defeated, which is amazing considering, once again, this monster, first of all, it's hard to kill, and if it does manage to die, it comes back, and then all the support skills it has for its team, oh my gosh, this monster is great. It's going to be a great monster for offense, a great monster for defense. And as for the other relic, it's a shield, once again providing armor for himself or for his teammates. If you happen to be fortunate enough to have the tenacity shield, the diamond shield, at the start of your battle, all allies gain 9,000 points of armor. Let's rank this up all the way to level 40, 31,000 points of armor. Can you imagine that? Gakora, 31,000 points of armor to your whole team, and then if you happen to kill Gakora, it'll just come back. So, oh my gosh, this is going to be a really tough monster to beat on defense. Good luck to everyone out there. And alright, with all that out of the way, let's talk about the skills. Starting things off with the ultimate skill, Wisdom Winds. Deals very heavy light damage to all enemies, removes positive status effects from all enemies, applies sunburn to all enemies. So 60 AoE light based damage, remove good effects from the enemy monsters, and sunburn. Overall, it's just a pretty good ultimate effect. Sunburn will reduce HP by 10% for the next 3 turns for a grand total of 30%, and then sunburn reduces enemy accuracy by 15%. On top of that, any buff they may have had, which includes any shields, any damage buffs, anything of the sort, that's going to be removed. So it's a great skill. It's nothing fancy or anything, but it's a pretty good ultimate skill. Alright, and now to talk about the regular skills. This monster, in my opinion, is one of those monsters that has like 6 good skills to choose from, and it really varies depending on how you want to use this monster mostly. Do you want this monster for offensive purposes, for defensive purposes? Do you want this monster for both purposes? So it's going to vary from individual to individual. I'm going to do my best to go through all of those 6 amazing skills, and then you guys are ultimately going to decide for yourself. I'll give you guys the pros and cons of running each skill at the very end once I discuss them all individually. So starting things off in skills group 1, Remover of Obstacles. Deactivates all cooldowns on one ally, removes all negative status effects from one ally. This skill deals no damage. It's a single ally skill. It costs 60 stamina, which is a pretty hefty price to pay. However, it has no cooldown, meaning you can use the skill as many times as you needed to. Realistically, you'd only be able to spam it twice before you had to recharge, unless you had a stamina relic, stamina regeneration, a teammate that can give you stamina, and basically whatever teammate you target, that monster is going to have its cooldown reset. And so obviously this is a great counter against enemies that can do cooldowns activated against one of your teammates or to all of your teammates. So for example, being in the light category, you have to worry about Alkaline. Alkaline can do AoE cooldowns activated. And as far as the books, you have to worry about Ruby. She can do single cooldowns activated. And then as far as actual team wars, you have to worry about Timerion mostly. For example, if you're facing a ranked up Timerion and he does cooldowns activated, even if you're slower with Gakora, you can just restore the cooldowns on your next monster, whether it be your attacker or your support monster. Imagine if your support monster was a Rossigon. Rossigon could get his cooldowns reset, and then when it's Rossigon's turn, he can reset the cooldowns on Gakora and also turn transfer, which means then Gakora would be able to use one of its team skills. So nifty little combo you can do there. But yeah, in my opinion, this is definitely a great skill when you should definitely consider running. This skill works mostly for offense, not so much on defense, because on defense you always run the risk of the AI doing the skill at the wrong time. Can you just imagine the very first turn, your Gakora is faster than the enemy, but the very first thing it does is Remover of Obstacles, just completely waste the skill, completely waste the stamina. And so if you're planning to use Gakora on defense a lot, I really wouldn't recommend Remover of Obstacles. However, if you mostly plan to use Gakora for offensive purposes, then definitely run Remover of Obstacles. Moving on to skills group 2, we have Long Life. Deals moderate light damage to one enemy, applies regeneration to all allies, requires cooldown. 30 damage to a single enemy monster, 18 stamina cost, that's pretty low, 2 turn cooldown, and your whole team gets regeneration for the next 3 turns, which will recover 20% of all of your allies' life. Now in my opinion, this is a really great skill to bring, both on offense and on defense. In terms of offense, I already mentioned this monster is supportive. This monster is there to keep your monsters alive. It can hold the Essence Relic, the Shield Relic, and on top of that, give your team life regeneration. Like seriously, what more can you ask for? It's a great skill. And in terms of defense, this really isn't that bad of a skill if the AI was to do this first. There's better skills the AI could do, but even if it was to start off with the team life regeneration, once again, combine that with the essence and the armor, it's really not such a bad thing. And so if you want to Gakora with a skill set for both offense and defense, definitely consider running Long Life. Big Belly is the next skill, deals moderate light damage to all enemies, applies damage mirror to itself, requires cooldown. So this skill is says to target a single enemy, but the description says AoE, and so I imagine maybe this is one of those 95% accuracy AoEs, costs 29 stamina, has a 3 turn cooldown, and basically it applies damage mirror to yourself, which means if you ever get attacked, whatever damage you receive, whether it be 10k or 100k, it'll just reflect it back to the enemy attacker. And in my personal opinion, Big Belly isn't worth running. You have a better skill in skills group 3 that actually gives damage mirror to all of your teammates. That's the skill you're going to want to run. And then we have Fearlessness, applies immunity to stun, freeze, and possession to all of your allies. Talk about an amazing anti-control skill. Costs 30 stamina, has a 3 turn cooldown. All of your teammates get immunity to stun, possession, and freeze, the main control effects. So a skill like this is great to have. I will say though, for offense, I don't really think it's needed. And the reason for that is because in skills group 3, you have an even better skill that by the time you use that skill, there's really no need to apply these immunities to your teammates. Now if you're running Gakora for defensive purposes, then this is definitely a phenomenal skill to have, because if your AI was to do this skill, then your enemy, if he's going to rely on a deny monster to deny you, if your Gakora is faster and does Fearlessness, well, they're pretty much in trouble. They're not going to be able to deny any of your teammates, because most likely they're going to be trying to deny you with one of the typical control effects. So great skill for defense, not so much for offense in my opinion. I think some people might argue that for offense it can still work, but I really don't think this is needed, and I'll get back to this skill after I discuss skills group 3. And so in skills group 3, the first skill we have is Spiritual Cleaning. Deals heavy light damage to one enemy, removes positive status effects from one enemy, removes all negative status effects from all allies, requires cooldown. This skill I think is phenomenal. I love when skills do this. I love these skills on the supportive monsters. I think the skill could have been even more spectacular if it would have removed all positive effects from all of the enemy teams, but hey, I guess one enemy monster is still good enough. So deals 50 light base damage, costs 31 stamina, has only a 1 turn cooldown, which is extremely nice. And so once again, one enemy monster, they're going to lose their positive effect, but all of your monsters, they're going to remove any debuffs they may have. So again, this monster is supportive. He's there to help your team. He can do life regeneration, he can do immunity to control effects, and he can remove negative effects on a 1 turn cooldown. This skill is great. I think Spiritual Cleaning is a great skill for offensive purposes, not so much for defense. Because once again, on defense, you want to think about what the AI is going to do. If the AI was to do Spiritual Cleaning on the very first turn, well, it pretty much just wasted a skill. So defense doesn't work so much. Offense, definitely, because you can choose when is the best time to use this skill. Moving on, we have Only One Tusk. Deals heavy light damage to one enemy, applies damage mirror to all allies, requires cooldown. 45 damage, light base damage, 27 stamina cost, 3 turn cooldown. And so this is a skill I was saying was better than the skills group 2 version. This time all of your teammates get damage mirror, meaning that if any of your teammates get attacked, they're all going to be reflecting the damage back on the enemy. This skill is great for offense as well as defense. In terms of offense, I think it's pretty obvious. If the enemy monsters are attacking next, you could set up that damage mirror to reflect whatever damage they deal on you. And in terms of defense, if the AI was to start off with this skill, well, they're going to really have to think about attacking you, because if they were to OTK one of your monsters, for example, thanks to the damage mirror, you would OTK that monster back. And in terms of team wars, that means dropping a coin, which really isn't recommended. So great skill to have on defense, great skill to have on offense. And then we move on to the final skill, the best skill, Lord of Beginnings. Applies Evasion to all allies, requires cooldown. 36 stamina cost, 4 turn cooldown. All of your teammates get Evasion for 1 turn. Evasion is by far one of the best things in the game. This makes it so you can't take any damage, and you can't get hit with negative effects. This means you can't get hit with a DOT, a torture status effect, you can't get hit with a debuff, you can't get hit with something like a control effect, no freezing, no mega freezing, no stunning, mega stunning possession, 2 turn possession, hacked, glitch, all those special possessions. You are completely immune to all of that. Evasion is so darn phenomenal, and then combined with this monster's amazing base speed, combined with the fact that he can come back to life if you have that Uriel's Essence, combined with the Armor Relic, combined with the fact he's a team race monster, lots of players are going to get him at rank 3. This is why I'm saying Gakora has the potential to be the #1 team race monster. But anyhow, going back to this skill, Team Evasion, this means you can do so much. This is a counter to Ruby. If you're facing a Ruby and your Gakora is faster and you go first, well, guess what? You set up the Team Evasion, Ruby can do her Ruby explosion and it's not going to touch you. It's not going to touch any of your teammates. That means no random control effects to any of your teammates. That means no ignition damage, nothing. Now, of course, cooldowns activated can still penetrate, and even stamina drain can penetrate. But the important thing is that your monsters aren't going to be taking any damage or getting denied, which means they're going to be able to react. And so the amazing thing about Lord of Beginnings is that there's so much synergy you have with this skill. For example, as long as Gakora goes first and you set up that evasion, your other 2 allies, they can be super slow and it won't matter. They're gonna get a guaranteed turn in for the most part, which means if you have a support monster and an attacker, you can use that time to set up, give your attacker increased accuracy, double damage, and then that attacker can hit the enemy hard with an AoE. Or if you happen to have an extra turn monster, like a Voltic or a Xyla, even if your Voltic and Xyla don't have the best runes, if you have team speed runes, as long as Gakora can go first, that Xyla and Voltic, they're guaranteed to turn in, they're not going to be denied, they're not going to be dead, and they can just attack endlessly until they wipe out the enemy team. So for example, in team wars involving superheroes and light, and then whatever the third element is, even if there's an enemy Voltic on defense, Voltics are pretty hard to counter unless you have a Faraday. Well, it doesn't matter, once again, you bring your Voltic, even if you're facing a ranked up Voltic, you bring your level 100 Voltic, whatever, you bring Gakora, you set up Evasion, that Voltic can waste all of his stamina attacking you, he's never going to land any damage, and then as soon as your Voltic gets a turn in, you're going to be able to wreak havoc on the enemy team. So much great synergy that can be pulled off with Evasion. Now keep in mind, it can also still be removed with an enemy skill that removes positive effects, so that's something to watch out for. Once again, stamina drain still penetrates and cooldowns activated still penetrates. And so with that said, let's go over the different skill sets you can potentially run. And actually before that, I said I would come back to this. The reason I personally don't think that Fearlessness is really needed for offensive purposes is because if on the first turn you do Evasion, a team evasion, most likely by the time it's your turn again, there really isn't going to be a reason to run Fearlessness. I mean, by then your other two monsters went, so hopefully you already eliminated the enemy deny monster. And even if you didn't, let's say you kept the enemy deny monster alive because the enemy attacker was a bigger threat, the attacker had 2 level 10 strength runes or whatever. Well, if you eliminated the enemy attacker and all that's left is an enemy, the third monster that's a team speed holder, and a deny monster, even if that deny monster has deny skills, keep in mind it's only running speed while the other monster is running team speed, so they don't really have a great way of dealing damage. So they're really honestly not that big of a threat. I think a better play would be just to activate your only one tusk, give your whole team damage mirror, so that way even if they do attack you and deny you, whatever little damage they do deal, you're going to at least reflect it back. So that's my personal opinion. Once again, this is purely, if you're purely thinking Gakora for offensive purposes, I think Fearlessness doesn't need to take up a slot. If it's a pure offensive Gakora, and by that I mean not an attacker Gakora, some people confuse that. I mean, if you're running Gakora mostly to use when you're an attacker, you don't really plan to put this monster on defense, on your defense team or whatever, I would recommend Lord of Beginnings, only one tusk, spiritual cleaning, and then I would recommend Remover of Obstacles, just for those times that you need to counter cooldowns activated, or when you need to reset the cooldowns of one of your monsters. And the difficult thing for me is that I also want to run Long Life, but I just really don't know at this point. I think what I'm just going to have to do is just test play with Gakora and see if I ever find myself using Remover of Obstacles. If it turns out that I don't use it that often, then I think I will switch for Long Life, or maybe one of the other skills if I don't find myself using it too much. But as of right now, just know that Lord of Beginnings is a must-have skill. Only one tusk I also think is a must-have, or near must-have. And Spiritual Cleaning, I just can't run a support monster without a skill that can do this. I think this is way too powerful, considering all the random negative effects that can be applied against your team, and sometimes you just need to remove that positive effect from that one enemy monster. So I think Spiritual Cleaning for me personally is a must, so it really goes down to Long Life and Remover of Obstacles for me. You may have a different opinion, and that's totally fine. Let me know in the comments below if that is the case. Now, if you're planning to run Gakora primarily to be AI proof, and as close to AI proof that you can get this monster, I think, is if you run Lord of Beginnings, only one tusk, Fearlessness, and Long Life. Because this way, no matter what your Gakora does on defense, it's going to be pretty darn good. Long Life is going to give your whole team regeneration. Fearlessness is going to render the enemy's deny monster utterly useless because your whole team has immunity to stun, possession, and freeze for 3 turns, which means even if one of those other allies has a single stun, single possession, single freeze, completely useless, only one tusk will allow all of your teammates to reflect 100% of the damage they receive. So great skill if the AI does this first. And Lord of Beginnings, obviously this is what you want the AI to do first. You want to protect your whole team, which will then allow all of your monsters to go, and on the second turn, your Gakora can do one of the other skills. In which case I think Fearlessness would be good to still render the enemy's deny monster useless. So this would be my personal recommendation if you know you're going to be using Gakora on defense a lot. And I mean, even on defense, this is still a really good skill set. You know, the only difference is that you're running Fearlessness instead of Spiritual Cleaning, and you're running Remover of Obstacles instead of Long Life, which I said could really be interchanged possibly. So it's not that difference, it's just a slight nuance of running Fearlessness. And so then if you're one of those players that thinks you're going to be using Gakora both on offense and on defense just about equally, then in that case that might possibly just be the best skill set for you. Lord of Beginnings, only one tusk, Fearlessness, and Long Life, with just one possible change being Spiritual Cleaning over Long Life, just in case you plan on using this monster a little more for offense. Just again, maybe it's just a personal bias thing where I just love being able to remove negative effects from my allies whenever they need it. I think that might be more powerful than giving my team regeneration. But again, that's just me. So that's the skill sets. Let me know in the comments below what you personally going to run, why you think one skill set is better than the other. As for runes for this monster, I think it goes without saying. 3 speed runes, give this monster your best speed runes, utilize that team evasion, utilize that damage mirror. Just, oh my gosh, I hope all of you were able to get this monster, or many of you. Great monster. I hope you can get some good shields and some good essence relics to give this monster. Once again, he's in the Spirits book, he's in the Good Legions book. He's a great addition to those books, a great counter to Ruby, one of the most powerful nemesis monsters. And so that's my personal thought on Gakora, but now I want to hear from all of you guys. What do you guys think about this team race monster? Do you agree with me that he's the best team race monster, or do you think there's someone better? Do you think one of the other team race monsters outshines him? Do you think it's not really fair to compare because some of the other team race monsters are in a different category? Some are deniers, some are attackers. You know what, I think Gakora might be the first true support monster, which is great. We're getting more supportive monsters. So I don't know, let me know in the comments below. What do you guys think about this monster? Let me know whether or not you're going to be getting this monster, and let me know what you thought about this video. I look forward to reading all of your guys' comments. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.